how did you know the project? What made you interested in working on such project?
Well, uh, Kim and I and Joseph, the writer director, we all actually went to NYU grad film together many years ago. But so this was sort of a coming together of all of us. Uh, this was Joe's second feature, and after he made his first feature, he did a bunch of television and kind of wanted to go back to indie filmmaking with a trusted group, which was how we all ended up coming to the project. But it's also, I think, and Kim, you can speak to this too, I think we were also just not only wanted to support Joe and think he has a really unique point of view and way of filmmaking, but the story meant a lot, and what the story is speaking to and about.
Definitely. I mean, I think that, obviously I want to only speak for myself and not put words in other people's mouths, but I personally find it really important to tell stories about gendered violence. And yes, the way that it intersects with different communities, the intersectionality of it is just endless, depending on who you are and where you are, and whether you are blue collar or upper class or middle class. And it is something that I think, unfortunately, a lot of people experience, or at the very least live and breathe in the culture. So for me, it was really important with my own background to kind of lift up stories that kind of deal with this. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how was the working experience with Joseph, who was at the same time the writer, director, and producer?
It was sort of it was a natural kind of collaboration since we'd worked with him before, and knew him as a person and friend, and so it was very collaborative, from the beginning, developing the script with him, and then very clearly understanding his vision, and then working with him to find the best way to execute that vision. It was a sort of it was a really nice, it was a collaborative, wonderful experience, I think, and special.
Do you have something you want to add, Kim?
I would just say that Joseph is a very kind and generous person, just as a human being, and that definitely continues in his collaboration. I think that Joe treats every single person with such sensitivity and respect, and I really loved that aspect of working with him.
And how was the experience of working with Kelly Race? Did you have her in mind from the beginning?
Joe had the story and the script, but then it was early in the process that he came across Kaylee on Instagram. Actually, he was getting into boxing himself and had some friends that had boxing gyms, and saw a post from her and just immediately was interested. And then Kaylee was incredible to work with. She has so much to bring from her own experiences. She's also a quite insightful person too. She's also an activist and a speaker on the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women. So she really brought experience and heart to the project. Also a very collaborative person.
What financial prospect do you see of having Kaylee Race as the lead actress? Do you think her boxing career can help him in terms of sales?
I think what is most exciting about entering the distribution and sales process is Kaylee, and is the idea of kind of having her debut into the acting world, because anyone who hasn't seen the film yet, which is most people, they're in for quite the experience with her. She is a star. Like, when you see her on screen, she is just incredibly magnetic and is so grounded in every scene. So to me, I think that is the biggest, most exciting thing about premiering the film, is just having other people know how special she is once we have distributors.
There is a lot of talk about inclusion these days. Is it becoming really much easier to finance such kind of projects?
I would say that there needs to be more work done. It's still really hard to finance independent films, in particular if you don't have, if you're working with your main talent not already having a name, so to speak. And so you have to find investors who are interested in the story and the filmmaking. But I think it is improving, but there's some ways to go.
Mhm. And who are the significant financier for these kind of project? Are they more private sources or public funding?
Yeah,
I
it's a
would
combination of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Kim.
go.
It's a combination of, tax credits in New York. We shot in New York, and private equity. We also, there were some grants. Actually, we had a few grants. That is really significant and important with films like this to have that. But it's a combination of soft money, grants, tax incentives, and private equity is probably the majority of the financing, though.
Mhm.
And we also got to participate in a program called SF Film, like SF, like San Francisco Film Invest. And so through Caroline Von Kuhn, who's now at Sundance, she introduced us to some investors who wound up investing in our film through that program pretty early on, which I think gave us a lot of great momentum.
Mhm. How many days did the shooting take place? Did you have any specific issue during the shooting?
I'm like, how many days did
It was 20 days.
20?
It was 20 days. And I think the biggest thing, we shot in upstate New York, Buffalo, in the winter. And I think all of us ended up buying the same heated vest because it was cold. It was very cold.
We
That
did.
was
I got
biggest challenge.
pneumonia.
And was it before the COVID time or during the COVID period?
It was right before.
And what was the impact of COVID on the film in terms of production or distribution, if you can say a little bit?
Well, really the impact was in post-production because that was during the editing process. And so, so it's tough. It was tough, I think, for Joe not to be sitting next to his editor because there's so much that you get when you're just sitting next to someone feeling how they're feeling, so that ended up having to be remote, which made it tough. And I think also just editing during that time, it was also during like the rise of the BLM movement. There was quite a lot of heavy things going on, which I think was definitely, it's tough to edit something anyway, but then there's that added emotional weight. I think in some ways I hope that it was turned into an additive to the film. I think that it was.
You both worked with famous names as executive producer for your previous works, and I should also mention that now you are also a very famous name for yourself. But Brad Pitt and here Darren Aronofsky was involved in your project, in previous project. How is it essential to have big names like them in project?
I think it is so important and wonderful for people who have quote unquote big names to attach them to smaller independent films grounded in either unknown, about to break, or non-actors. On this film, obviously Kaylee Reese, this is her acting debut, and I am so proud of her performance, and I think that it's such a revelation in the film. And the similar thing on The Last Black Man in San Francisco, Jimmy Fails it was his acting debut as well. And Jonathan Majors is a professional actor, but he had not been cast in Lovecraft Country and any other films yet. So they were, a smaller cast. So I think that it's really important for people to do that. And, I think all producers and filmmakers in the independent space really, really appreciate it.
And what was the role of Darren Aronofsky? How did you convince him to join the project?
Joe had previously met him, I think through his manager, sort of a general, and then they shared the project with him. And so he already was a fan of Joe's work, his directing. And then he read the script. And I think a lot of it too, though, was when he saw a video that Joe sent him of Kaylee. It was during Joe's working with her, and he could see, like we could see, that there was really someone special there.
What is the prospect for distribution? Have you reached a deal for territories outside of the US?
Some things are still in negotiation as far as outside the US, but we're waiting for our premiere to see what will happen domestically.
Mhm. And I saw the Memento also represent the film. Have you reached a deal for Francophone territories?
I think they're in discussions.
How do you feel about online distribution? There is a lot of competition these days among big stream channels. Did it make life easier for an independent project like this in terms of financial recoupment?
We shall see. But I definitely think that some films really can really sometimes need to rely on theaters, so sort of the word of mouth, if it's a film that doesn't sort of fit into a box. I do think, though, that this film, because of its genre elements, could do well online, and I love the idea of it like reaching a broader audience that way. But as far as the financial recoupment, it's tough for an indie film regardless. So I think it's sort of we'll have to wait and see.
I just wonder if you have anything more you want to say about this project and your hope for from the audience, what you hope to achieve that this film could achieve.
I would love to see this film be a huge breakout for Kaylee Race as an actress. I really so strongly believe in her and her future as an actress. I think that there's something about her as a boxer and just boxing being like reacting on the spot to other people's, micro movements, that it really just made her this like fertile ground for the role. And so I am so excited for her to be out there and to hopefully get cast in like many more things. So for me, that's my great hope for the film.